All right, guys, welcome to LyonStrong, the place where you get to become who you are designed to be. My name is Lionel Lamarck. I am the host here. I'm excited about having you guys here today for this interestingly different session that we're going to have. What is so cool about today's show is that we're going to address really what makes Lion Strong different, what it is about us that would make you want to even reach out and ask anything. Okay, so it's really simple. A lot of people always ask me, well, what is it that you do? How is it that you're different? And what is it that you do that makes it, such an interesting thing to be part of? And it's simple. What we do here is not like anything else that you will find, because what we work on is developing and implementing cutting edge body mechanics to be able to help fix everything that's going on with you. We address a lot of different things. So we address things like your posture, the way you stand, the way you sit, the way you walk, the way you run, the way you squat, the way you throw, and the way you sleep. All of those things have to do with the way your body functions. And that actually determines your capability of doing pretty much anything and everything that's out there. So we're going to talk about this, a specific area in specific way, to be able to really help you guys understand like the benefits of implementing and working and correcting your body mechanics so that you can function better, you can be pain free, you can be injury proof, you can literally be an absolute badass ninja in the way that you walk, run, throw, move, and do everything. So let's address that. The first thing that we want to look at when we actually taking a look at what you're doing when you're working with us is we want to take a look at your posture. And I want you guys to pay attention to this because this is really important. When you think of posture, what comes to your mind? It should be basically anything and everything that you do, the way you sit, the way you stand, the way you walk, the way you do everything, the way you carry yourself, right? So when you're looking at your posture, we want to make sure that you're making sure that your joints are stacking properly, meaning that your shoulders are actually sitting over your hips the way they should be, and your hips are sitting over the knees, and so on, and going all the way down to the entire chain. Your head isn't pushing too far forward. There's all these different things. So a lot of people are suffering because without realizing it, especially when we're paying a lot of time, like sitting on our little phones and being like this all the time, right? We're creating that forward neck movement that's really wreaking havoc on our postures, because now it's putting an extra strain on all our muscles, upper back, shoulders, neck, all that stuff, right, are suffering because we don't even realize that our necks are getting out of place. That's a posture issue that can be corrected with the proper body mechanics and really utilizing some of the things that we do here. So we want to make sure that you become aware of that and understand what you can do to fix and improve your posture overall. Another thing that's super important: how do you stand? What do you look at when you're actually standing? Pay attention to that. Do you tend to stand on one side, for example, more so than the other? Do you tend to maybe put one leg out or maybe turn a foot out in a certain way that you don't, without even realizing it? Most of us don't pay attention to those things that we're doing when we're doing them. But if you really start paying attention to that, what you're going to realize is that there are certain things that you're doing that you're unaware of that are causing havoc in your body without you realizing that. What I've always said is that most of the things that you're suffering from, the pain that you're having, the issues that you're having with movement and everything else, the aches and pains and the whatevers, right? 99% of the time, that's caused by the way you're moving and you're not aware of those movements. Because what's happening, there's an imbalance that's happening in your body. Something is working harder than something else. And all of a sudden, you start feeling the effects because you're having pain in a joint or discomfort somewhere or some soreness that's just coming out of nowhere, basically for nothing. Sometimes there's a movement specifically that you did that triggered it, but I promise you the movement wasn't the culprit. It's a combination and a culmination of all the things that you've done up to that point where now the movement is the thing that throws you over. So take a look at the way you stand and let me know if those things are, if you're seeing anything that doesn't quite seem normal, right? If there's an imbalance, you tend to shift more to one side or you're turning the foot out, things of that nature. That's really going to help you identify some of what's going on there. Okay. How about the way you sit? When you're sitting down, do you tend to slouch? Do you tend to slouch forward? Do you tend to slouch backwards? Do you tend to slide down and basically kind of sit with your back arched? Or do you tend to sit up and be really stacked properly? Is your core engaged when you're sitting? All of those things matter, but most people don't have any idea what's happening when they're doing it because you're so focused on whatever you're doing, whether you're working, playing, doing a thing, whatever, when you're sitting down. So you're not aware of all these things that are happening. Start paying attention. You will be absolutely amazed to see and understand how your body responds when you're sitting, if you're doing it properly, or more likely, if you're doing it incorrectly. Because then you start noticing little things about what happens when you sit down. Do you have to shift a lot when you're sitting? Do you have to switch positions? Because if you sit for in a specific way too long, something in your body starts hurting, whether it's your shoulders, whether it's your back, whether it's something else, right, that's happening. How do you put your feet when you sit down? Do you have them fully extended out in front of you, or do you have them planted flat on the ground? Do you have them tucked under? Do you kind of tend to sit and cross your legs in between or under you when you sit down? All those little things have a huge impact on what happens to your body, whether you understand it or not. Some people, when they sit down, always cross one leg. They can do that easily, but they can't do the other. Do you ever wonder why that is? Do you ever wonder why, or what happens again to your body basically when you always doing the same exact motion without changing or reciprocating on the other side? All of those things can contribute to throwing imbalances in your body and make things incorrect. So we want to be able to look at all of that and make sure that what we're doing is working on fixing it. Okay. Another thing, you walk. You walk every day. Now, are you aware of what's actually happening when you're walking? How do your feet land in front of the other? Do they tend to turn out to the left or to the right? Is there one side that pulls more than the other? When you walk in, are you driving through your glutes to actually walk, or are your hips basically generating or throwing everything off? Interesting questions, right? Things that you've probably never thought of before. How about this? What happens with your upper body? Are your arms moving properly? Is your thoracic, region moving? Is there any rotation at all happening in your body, or is it basically stiff like a board? Little things that you never really pay attention to, but that can have a huge impact on everything. Well, better yet, I should say, is a huge telltale on what's going on with you and whether or not everything is functioning the way that it should. Here's the fact, guys. There's a crap ton of muscles in your body that you're not using on a regular basis, and you have no idea it's happening. Because again, you don't consciously pay attention to these things to do them because they're just on automatic pilot. So that autopilot, if it's off a little bit, can throw you off course in a way that's really damaging to your body overall. All we want to do is help pull you back in, so to speak, and help realign that so that everything is going exactly in the direction as it should, and your body performs the way it was designed to be. It's really not that difficult. The problem is, most people, you guys are listening to this, are already doing things. You're active, right? You go to the gym, you work out, you do different things. You've worked out with trainers, you have all this stuff happening. That's great and that's fantastic. The only question I'm asking is, are you aware of actually how your body's truly functioning? Because here's why. If you're not aware of what it's doing, then that means that there's a big chance that everything else that you're doing it in a way that can be destructive to you, that can be damaging long term, without being aware that you're actually doing that. So even though you're doing those things with the right intention of creating something good for you, you could be creating habits that are actually like bad and not great and not benefiting for you overall. So we want to really help you get an understanding of that and make the changes so that you can implement the right stuff and the right movements in what you're doing and still continue on whatever you were doing before and get the results that you wanted to have the right way going forward. It is so much better than just kind of eliminating everything overall, right? So pay attention. The way you walk really has an impact on everything that you do. And for me, it's a great telltale as to what's happening in your body and knowing where to go and what to start focusing on to fix to make the corrections happen. How about your run? Some of you don't even run anymore because when you do, all it does is cause pain, right? Because I hear that a lot from people. Yeah, I can't run because either my knees hurt, or I get shin splints, or I get plantar fasciitis, or I get back pain, or all these other things happen from running. Guess what? It's not running itself that's the problem. It's your body mechanics that are, because everything is not working correctly since your movements aren't happening the way they should. It's causing all kinds of other issues for you when you do that. So how about those of you that run, then you don't necessarily get pain when you run, but maybe a day or two after the run, you start feeling all these other effects. Understand that it's all connected. The great thing is, if you fix those mechanics and you get them working properly, your running gets so much better, so much faster. And is that something you really truly enjoy, like running long distance because you get that runner's high and whatever, then you'll be able to do this for literally decades without ever worrying about, I have to stop running because it's bad for my body. I know you see this a lot. People, man, that, hey, I used to run a lot when I was younger, had to stop because, man, my knees and this and that and that and that are hurting. All these things happen later on down the line. It's not because running was bad. It's simply because they weren't aware of what their body was doing during that motion. And by the time they got to realize something was off, it was too late to be able to correct. The good thing is, As long as you're still moving and able to move, you can make huge improvements in your body mechanics. Not saying that you'll be able to go run 20 miles a day every anymore, if you've made some serious damage to that, but you'll definitely be able to regain the ability to run and enjoy that process without causing more damage to you going forward. So super important. Pay attention to that. How about this? This is one that everybody does, especially if you go to the gym, right? Squat. We all squat every single day, whether we realize it or not. Even if you've never worked out a day in your life, you squat every day. You know how? You have to get on the toilet, right? You have to sit down. All of those things are basically forms of squat. Now, here's something that I want to ask you. If you ever paid attention, actually watch your movement. Take a look at what you do when you're squatting, quote unquote, without weights or with using weights if you're doing a workout versus what you do when you sit down. And tell me if it's the same. It's quite an interesting thing because honestly, the way you move should be the same regardless of what it is that you're doing. But what I always see with people is the way they squat and the way they sit down doesn't tend to be the same. There's a big difference between the two. Now, I understand, obviously, sitting down, there's a chair, there's something stopping you. Squatting, there really isn't. So it's technically not the same, even though it's the same. But the movement pattern should be identical. The way you move, the way you engage in each one of those scenarios should be identical. The sad thing is, for most people, it's not even remotely close to being the same. There's a drastic difference between what they do when they sit down versus what they do when they squat. And that is a problem. And that is a way to guarantee that there will be issues with what you do with squatting later on. So if you're using weights and you're doing things and you're finding yourself having pain and other things happening when you're squatting, that's probably part of the reason why, because your mechanics are off and you haven't figured out how to fix that. Those are all things that really should be looked at and addressed because, again, they have an impact on how you live, what happens, where you go, whether you pain free or whether you actually suffer. So, you know, don't say that, oh man, oh, I can't do this, that, and the other. I mean, you should all be working out. You should all be doing something active, right? The whole idea is you have this body that is an incredible machine that's designed to move in ways that you may not have even considered yet. And so if all that you're doing are the same things in the same way that's caused and created the results that you have right now, whether you're dealing with some serious issues or not, you have an opportunity to correct that just by paying attention to what's going on in every one of those areas and then addressing what you need to do to fix them and moving forward from there. Okay, so super important, make it happen. Another area that I want to look at, right, is throwing. We all throw stuff, whether we throw professionally or we throw as an amateur or we throw because, well, we just got to throw something to somebody here and there, right? What happens when you do that? What's the motion like? When you're throwing, is it coming from your wrists? Is it coming from your elbows? Is it coming from your shoulders? Or is the power coming from your hips? Or is it coming from the ground? There's so many different variations of the way you throw and what you do. And all of those mechanics can either help you and continue building and making you stronger, or they can completely cause damage to you based on what you're doing. So whether you're playing a sport that requires you the ability to have the ability to throw on a consistent basis, or you just like to throw stuff just because, I think we all do, right? Think about monkeys. One of the things that they do is they like to fling poop. So they like to throw that. We're not monkeys. We're not saying that we're going to throw poop at people or anything, but the idea is we all like to throw. That's something that's just basic and innate to us as humans. And so we want to be able to continue doing that, but doing it in a way where when we do it, it doesn't hurt us. It actually improves everything that we're doing. So important to pay attention and know and understand the mechanics of what you're doing, and then be able to look at that and address it and correct them as we go along. Super important. Another area that I want to talk about that we all do is sleep. Yeah, sleep. Now I know you're thinking, well, wait, how can I pay attention to what I do when I sleep? I'm sleeping. Exactly. You are. So how do you sleep? Are you a back sleeper? Are you a side sleeper? Do you sleep on your stomach? Are there certain things that you do when you're sleeping that maybe you wake up and you realize that, man, my shoulders hurt, or I have this issue or that issue when I sleep? Are you aware of what your body's doing when you're sleeping? I know it sounds like a crazy question, but it's not. Most of us actually know the things that we do when we sleep because we tend to be comfortable getting in those positions. What we don't realize is staying in those positions for extended periods of time can actually be damaging to us overall because it's causing issues in ways that it shouldn't. Maybe making some muscles work harder than others when they really don't need to. Maybe creating tension in an area that it doesn't need to. I mean, there's so many different variables there, right? So paying attention to what you do when you sleep is important. If you sleep on your stomach, as much as and as comfortable uncomfortable as that may be, that's probably not the most ideal thing for you to do to be able to really help with posture and everything else going on with you, right? And improving body mechanics. So you probably want to take a look at doing some things to change that. If you sleep on pillows, and I know everybody loves to have a nice big pillow to be able to sleep on, the problem is if those pillows really like raise your head up a certain degree, that completely affects everything that's going on in your body on a regular basis. And you think about how much time you spend sleeping. If something is just off just by a little bit over an extended period of time, it could be absolutely damaging to you in ways that you don't even begin to understand. So paying attention to those and making the corrections to what you're doing when you're sleeping can have huge, I mean, huge impacts on everything about the way you move, the way you feel on a regular basis. So super important. Little things that may seem insignificant, but they have a huge, huge impact on everything that you do every day. Your body mechanics are important. The way you move is important. And that can make all the difference between being in pain all the time, between being in discomfort, between having the inability to do something that you used to be able to do 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that you're now struggling to just be able to make happen regularly. If we address those issues, take a look at the body mechanics, teach you how to engage muscles in a way that you haven't before, not only can you become pain-free and injury-proof, but you can become an absolute total badass capable of doing movements that someone, quote unquote, your age should not be capable of. And everyone looking at you like, man, how are you able to do this? And you can simply say, well, I just learned how to move correctly. And that made all the difference. So it's super, super important to be able to pay attention to those things. And I know it's real easy to think about going to the gym as a way to just get bigger, build muscle, lose body fat, and all that stuff. And I promise you, all of those things will happen. But it is so much better when you're working on those things while you're making sure you're correcting your body mechanics versus just working on those things and ignoring the stuff that can actually make it either painful for you to do what you want to do or really nice and easy and simple to do what you want to do. The choice is yours. You can do things and learn the right way and actually become better as you go along, or you can do things as you've always done them and hope that you got it right. And well, I don't know about you, but I don't like the idea of gambling and waiting for something and hoping and not taking any action to be able to make things happen. Knowing that I can do something specific to improve what I'm doing to get the results that I want is always a much better approach than just waiting and hoping that I get it right. All right. I'm sure if you guys have questions about any of this, you know what to do. You can look us up on getlyonstrong.com. You can go on any platform basically where you find us. Find me on social media. You can reach out, send me a message, phone call 786-377-4088. There's so many different ways where you can get in touch with us. Go ahead and do so. Let's have a conversation. Let's figure out what's going on with you and your body, and let's figure out how to implement the right things so that you fix your own mechanics and become the badass that you are designed to be. Love being here with you guys. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.